just like birds of a feather. I won't tell no lie. All of the people around us, they say, can they be that close? Just let me state for the record, we're giving love in a family dose. We are family. Hey, I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Living life is fun, and we've just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future, and our goals in sight. We know we don't get depressed. Here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do. You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is our family jewel. We are family. Sing it to me. I got all my sisters with me. Sing it to me. We are family. I can hear you, y'all. Get up, everybody, and sing. Ooh, we have faith in you and the things you do. Hey, hey, I got all my sisters with me. Oh, we are family. Get up, y'all.
So Sarah is going to put up a little video. So in order to see that video best, it's actually going to come up on the glass. There's a little like screen that's going to come
Over
down.
here.
So people might be best suited seating on the other side here.
But I'll tell you, the other thing you can do is you'll see at the top of your screen, it says screen zoom. And if you hover your cursor over that, there's the 4 screens that we have here. And it will show up when I pull it down. So you can use that too. Want to make sure we have everybody here because then we'll all experience it at the same time. But
and Sarah, Chris will do his little intro and stuff, and
Okay, yeah,
then
right.
I'm gonna actually
You just-
introduce the speakers, and then we'll kind of cue you up for it.
Sounds beautiful.
Great.
Yeah, well, we might as well just go ahead and get started. It's informal, so we're a couple minutes past our time, and with respect for the fact that we are in the middle of whatever life is today, we'll try to keep it as on time as possible. I'm Chris Moeller, Orion Growth founder, and John and I have been doing this now. I think this is our 9th one. John Ramser, is that right? If you're in, yeah, he's here. John's our video guy, who he's at the table. His perspective is the video that'll be on YouTube. So we do record these just to let you know. And very excited about today. One thing that I do try to make sure everybody takes a moment to explore Open Campus outside of this office. There's an amazing community. There's a couple of really awesome art exhibits right now in the exhibit hall, and a lot of other things to do outside of just meeting here. So, our idea here is just to elevate the conversation around the future of work, the future of living, health and wellness, and to kind of explore a different modality. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dave to introduce our speakers and get started. So thanks again for coming.
Yes, well said, Chris, and thank you everybody for coming, and Rowena and Elodie. It's so nice to have both of you here. I think it's actually really cool that we're actually speaking with our words towards each other for the first time in this environment. Neither of us have been on a Zoom call together, or I should say, I haven't been on a Zoom call with either one of you, which I think is kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce both of you briefly. The nature of the session is going to be that we'll have sort of 3 15-minute segments. We'll keep some informality to that, but just as a guiding principle for the conversation. And we'll then ideally leave roughly 10 or 15 minutes for audience participation. And for everybody here, we'd love to grab a photo at the end of the session before everybody drops out. And for those of you that can stick around, you know, we stick around too to have some informal chat and kind of move around the campus with anybody that may be interested. So welcome again, Rowena and Elodie. I will start with an intro of Elodie. Elodie is a seasoned commercial and brand leader. She successfully ran branded sales operations at L'Oreal and P&G before moving to strategic marketing consulting and entrepreneurship. She's always had a strong passion for language and traveling. She lived in more than 6 countries in the last 10 years. With 3 daughters, Elodie joins Boundless Life as a founding family before deciding to support the business as head of demand generation, and now lives the boundless life, which is quite fascinating. You'll hear more from her on that today. And Rowena gave me 2 different introductions for her, which was great. She gave me an abridged one and a longer one. The longer one is more fascinating, but I'm going to do the short one and hopefully give her a chance to expand on it in the conversation. So Rowena is a global expert in remote work and digital nomadism, a board member, advisor, founder, keynote speaker, academic professor, and LinkedIn top voice. She's popular LinkedIn learning instructor on the topics of becoming a digital nomad and staying productive when you travel and work. And in really cool fashion, Rowena's daughter is with her today, which is super cool. So welcome to both of you guys.
You.
Thanks for coming.
Here.
Okay, great. So I'm going to get Chris to roll a video, actually, of my daughter from yesterday. And then we're going to put up a screenshot of a comment that Chris made on a post this morning of mine. It's interesting moderating these discussions. I'm always finding that I need to be very flexible up to the last minute of having these conversations. I do prepare, but I find that new information lands on my proverbial desk because I no longer really have an office desk in that conventional sense. So yeah, Chris, start with the video and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so the video will be up here, and as Sarah said, Sarah, you can go ahead and cue that up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as Sarah said, if you want to mouse over the screen zoom, you can go directly to it, or you can just turn your head and watch. So give us a second.
The left.
Hello, my honey. How are you?
Hi.
Okay, tomorrow we're doing a conversation in the metaverse about family. Do you remember the metaverse?
Yes, now I do.
Okay, now you do. Nice. Okay, question for you. What does family mean to you?
Oh, it means life.
It means life. Wow. Mic drop from Al Cairns. That's what's up. Ooh. You got me with that one. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, that was really cool. And Henry, who's sitting right beside me, I started a DM conversation with him after posting just to talk about how cool it was. And he asked me if I was trying to do it to tickle the algorithm. The little bugger. Oh, anyway, okay.
Here's your quote, Dave.
Okay, so there's the quote. Chris, can you read it? Just read what you said.
Yeah, let me make sure I can see it because I'm standing over here in a bad angle. So I said it was in the context of parenting, right? And the comment is, in the U.S. in the 50s, we had breadwinner dads, zero balance in that equation, but mom was always home. Note, it was the 50s, so no judgment. I'm a little concerned that these kids are growing up with 2 distracted, albeit present parents. Being present and being engaged are 2 different things. The research in 10 years will be fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. So Chris got me with that comment this morning because I read it at 7:30 in the morning while my daughter was still home, and I was falling victim to the exact thing that he was calling out. So to open the conversation, I just actually want to provide some of my own vulnerability here and share an analogy. So yeah, that really struck me, and it's funny the timing because my wife and Amanda and I have been spending.
Tomorrow we're doing a conversation in the metaverse about family. Do you remember?
I got it.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, now you do. Nice. Okay,
I'll just wait till he gets it. No worries.
There you go.
Yeah, so my wife and I have spent a lot of time really in the last couple of months, to make a joke about it, talking about how we don't end up as millennial memes in 10 years' time, and actually end up being the parents that were present because of the pandemic, but ended up being more distracted than we would like. And how this actually kicked off for my wife and I a few weeks ago is we were sitting having fish and chips on the dock of downtown Charlottetown, which is super beautiful. Someone might have their, okay, I think we're good. Yeah, we're sitting on the dock having fish and chips. I'm on my phone, and my wife is about to like ream me out for it, as we all do towards each other, sometimes legitimately, sometimes as a projection. But she actually caught herself in her own sort of like, she had some self-awareness, and she realized she too was also on her phone. So we had a laugh about it, and then we had a very frank and real conversation about the potentiality of not paying attention to that. So that then leads me to an analogy. I was kind of thinking about when cars became a thing. It was kind of a free-for-all. Like, people smoked without the windows down. People smoked in cars in general. There was no seat belts. Kids were on the floor. And eventually we realized we needed to protect our physical safety, make rules about alcohol and things like this. But, when it comes to the modern world, and we really kind of think of the way we work, notably how we interact with social media and all these various productivity applications, we really don't have a lot of emotional safety from what we're dealing with. It's kind of the Wild West when it comes to figuring out how we can intertwine ourselves with this technology and use it to our benefit, not to our detriment. So we're here today to talk about the future of flexible working and how it's going to be a force multiplier for families around the world, which of course, it already is. But to kick off the conversation, I think it's important to discuss some of the darker sides, some of the pitfalls, and the safeguards that we might need to put in place to protect ourselves and get it right. So I'm going to ask this first question to Rowena to start. And so here we go, and we'll go with Elodie after this. Elodie, sorry. Okay, so here's the question. So when you consider these opening statements I've made, where do you think we are at this moment in terms of the interplay of work and family life? And more specifically, if we put to the sidelines for a second all of the amazing benefits of flexible working, and we focus on some of the blind spots or the dark sides, what might they be? So Rowena, I'd love to start with you.
Brilliant introduction there, Dave. And it's fascinating that you've already hit on one of my favorite topics, which is digital well-being and digital wellness. Thing that I've been building all of my work off of for years, because as an early tech adopter from the late 90s and working in tech for almost 24 years, constantly been aware, particularly with the advent of mobile phones, that we can be overconnected. And so if I can be overconnected, because it has to start with myself from a self-responsibility point of view and self-reflection, self-awareness, then as a parent, I can be overconnected, I can be distracted, I can be not completely present. And that is totally reflect on as a family, I reflect on as part of my core values as a human being. I've seen, like, my first contact with a computer was in 1986, 87. It was with landlines, there was no mobile phones. So I've seen it all, and I've seen a lot of commentary on that recently, and we're so connected. The devices are at the end, they're at our fingertips, they're in our hands. So what I think is really, really interesting is trying to break the cycle of when you do pick up that device, when you are all connected all at once, and balancing that with being so careful and precious about our really, really beautiful family time and moments that we can have together as families. And this is brought up straight away, falls in under the specialist realm of digital well-being and wellness. I collaborate with a world expert on it, a gentleman called Chris Flack. He's been my go-to for 4 years. He works with the Digital Wellness Institute in California. He would be someone brilliant to bring on to one of these sessions as well. And for me, constantly reading, educating myself and building my self-awareness and trying at a family level, and it's a constant battle, because someone once said to me, and I think this might be an interesting point of reflection, the day you think you're not addicted to technology is the dangerous day. We're all addicted to technology in some way or shape or form, even just a little bit. We were talking about Irish culture, so I'm going to be vulnerable with you. Irish culture is full of addiction. I know it really, really well. And therefore, addiction, whether it be alcohol, whether it be prescription drugs, whether it be food, whether it be technology, is really, really something that we all need to be aware of. And if we're picking up a device too much when we're meant to be having quality time with loved ones, community, family, we are distracted. Distracted ourselves, and we're distracted in their company, which is not the best. So I'll kick off with that addition, and also to add from an academic area perspective, it all falls in under digital wellness and well-being as an area.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. And I also love that you kind of didn't go into the hows as much, because I'd love to get there. The one thing I'll add before transitioning to Elodie is, these devices are really interesting because so much of them they're like cocaine, and cocaine is objectively bad. You can't just do a bit of cocaine. It tends to lead to problems. But here we are using social media as a way to actually get people to come to this conversation that we're having right now, which has already kicked off with tons of humanity and vulnerability. So we really need to continue to navigate figuring out how we interplay with these devices and these applications and all of this emerging technology. So thank you so much for that, Rowena. Elodie, if you need me to prompt you in any different way, please feel free to ask me. But in particular, I'd love to figure out if there's any extra nuance here related to the specific way that you and your family are living your life day to day, and if you find that is better or worse or different in relation to this question.
Yeah, no, I think nowadays because of technology, there is this expectation also that we should be always available, always there, always reachable, which is one of the biggest dangers, I think, when you have a family, because we all know how important it is present for the children to be in the moment. It doesn't mean that you need to be there 24/7. I think the examples of the 50s, like mom was there all the time, was actually not that meaningful. We know nowadays that, kids, if they can have you at the right moment, that's what matters the most. The problem of all those devices is that you're enticed to picking them up whenever. And there are also some expectations from work that you should be available. And I think that's something we need to fight very, very strongly, because at the end of the day, we're also we're role models. We have that role with our families to showcase what is a healthy lifestyle, and really manage this properly, because we're really setting expectations for the next generations. The other thing that I found interesting is this change, or this move now to indeed 2 people working nowadays versus in the past one main bread earner. We're still talking about working moms. We're never talking about working dads. And I still think we're adjusting to this new world. I think there is still hope, because I do see that now we're able to choose when we can be available. We can say sometimes no, and then be available in those important moments. But it is a whole new world. We need to find the right balance as a family nowadays, and 2 parents working. And fascinating, but it's not easy to find it.
Yeah, I love that, Elodie. You're making me think of something that my wife said to me probably 9 or 10 months ago now. She indulges me talking about the future of work, and it used to be about the future of the office a lot, and then I got tired of it, and she was like, "Oh, thank God! Who cares about the office?" But she always indulges me, and one of the things that she said to me is, she goes, "Dave, when you removed the office as your primary place of engaging with the world, you just became an infinitely better person in every regard." I always just think of how, I get chills when I think of the guy that I might have been if I had continued down the track of the pandemic having never happened. And, you can't underscore actually how spending most of your time inside of one physical environment that has a toxic culture can impact your way of thinking. And so I actually think that that's one of the hugest benefits of everybody not working in the office as much, is it just forces you to A, be with your family more often, and B, spend more time in your community. And for me, it's been absolutely incredible. And I know it's been the same for so many other, I'm going to say men, just because you did call out some of the gender inequities that are there. I'm very passionate about not rolling back the tape on any of that stuff. So I really appreciate your point of view on that. Okay, so to transition, I wanted to now, we've moved from kind of talking about the hard thing. I'd love to talk about how we can get it right going forward, very specifically how we can get it right. So appreciating that all families are different, what might be the sort of flexible family operating system, as it were? So in considering your answer, the analogy I'm seeking to depict here is that the very devices we're using to engage in this conversation are computers. They have a basic set of operating systems that then allow us to create something bespoke, something personal that is, to ourselves. So how might we apply this analogy to the future of family? And Rowena, I'll start with you on this one.
First of all, I did have a 9-year-old sat beside me, but once she wasn't able to make me do any samba dances, she's gone off, right? She's left the room. So I actually put the mic off because I want to, we constantly ask her, we're both tech workers, myself and my husband, we're both I'm in my 50s, he's 40s, we've been around tech for a long time. So when we decided that when we found out, let's be honest, we were going to be parents, because it was a bit of a surprise, right? Let's just say I got called the Golden Veil, and anyone who gets that hopefully will get the reference to being very fertile ground, right? But my husband was calling me the Golden Veil because I got pregnant with the snap finger. But we discussed very, very early on our core values. Elodie's point, and even her profile that you gave, the introduction, travel. I met my husband online through Match.com 11 years ago. We got pregnant very, very quickly, but travel, experiences, languages, we had a lot of core values as a couple. And so when we were blessed to have a family, not taking the fertility for granted, we did do a lot of talking about our values. Nothing prepares you for when suddenly you have this little person you're responsible for. But we had done a lot of talking at the start. So I'm answering your question along a roundabout way about lots of the topics we're talking about here today, 12 years ago. Things like not always being connected, enjoying nature without technology, lots of stuff, so that we knew we had similar core values. We love live music, we love snowboarding, we love hiking, not with our devices out the whole time. So we knew we had those core values, and that helped to lean into the parenting that we wanted to do, and also educating our future child about the risks. So getting outside is good. I just turned to her here and I said, do you want to stay with me? It'll be another half an hour, or do you want to go and play with your friends here outside? And she said, I want to go and play with my friends. So again, it's about choice in the moment and the questions that we ask as parents, but it's also our core values. And then I also want to say, based on the discussion, that we don't get it right, no one gets it right, right? I mean, look, we're human beings. So there's an element of self-kindness, because Elodie said something, and so did you, Dave, that I really empathized with. We're all just figuring this out. I come from a generation where my father walked in, sat down, and with his cutlery slammed on the table and said dinner. Right? In the 70s. I saw that.
Yeah, wow, wow.
Yeah, okay, so my mother was not, I mean, they eventually divorced, but my mother did not go out and work. So we are trying to create this new future with so much radical change. And anyone who follows me on LinkedIn knows I'm a massive, massive advocate for equality, for DEI, for accessibility. But I'm also looking at everything with the lens of self-kindness, because this is intense change. If we look at how families are evolving and how the roles that for both parents, it's just it's crazy mental load, sharing the parenting. I often want to say, no wonder men don't know what to do. I had a conversation the other day with two young 20-something-year-olds on a car journey, and they were saying they don't know. They were being really honest with me. what is happening and what men's roles are meant to be. So I think it's really, really interesting. And the only way we can approach that, I don't have the answers, is with a focus and a lens of self-kindness, because the amount of change, particularly since COVID, and the way things are evolving. So the type of questions, the type of maybe conversations we having is more about, how does this make you feel? How are you experiencing this as parents and as people who are interacting in relationships that want to be considerate and empathetic?
I love it. I love it. I'm going to turn it to Elodie, but I'm going to say something in between. So again, my wife and I were talking this morning about potentially the use of an app like the Freedom app, which allows you to block distraction things, whether that be for deep focus work or whether it be for spending time with your family. And it was in relation to a podcast that she was listening to where a journalist was talking about the major benefits that she held by using the internet, because it meant that as a journalist, she didn't need to travel nearly as much to stay up to date with what's going on in the world and be able to write about it or talk about it, which of course makes a ton of sense. But then it makes us all fall victim to these issues. And she brought up the importance of recognizing that the devices that are in our hands are designed to be addicted to. So I'm kind of curious, Elodie, in whatever response you want to give, if you have a perspective on any of that, and maybe if you're done and Rowena has a perspective too, let's give her an opportunity before we move to the next question.
I love that part. And the funny thing is that I met the Freedom team back in Portugal when we were in the running remote conference. And one of their employees is joining us with Boundless now this summer in Sintra, and I think they embody a lot of what I've discovered is really critical nowadays. I used to be like 200% on, running everywhere, being always connected, and having really very, very stressful job. And then I moved on to this new lifestyle, traveling a lot more, but also taking more time, because when you're on the road, it is tiring, but at the end of the day, you reconnect a lot more with yourself. And I think as a family, we've learned also to spend more time with each other, being away from these devices. Because when you're out there, there are so many beautiful things to explore. There are so many new people to meet that instead of, spending time in front of the TV in the evening, you actually spend time to connect with your neighbors, with your friends. Like yesterday, we came back from dinner. We're currently in Greece, in Syros. We came back from dinner. It was relatively late already, time to go for bedtime. And I would have traditionally been like, okay, very quick time to watch movie, and then we go to bed. But instead, there was this lady, Lila, who has become our Greek grandma, who was outside with 2 other people. And she offered a glass of wine. We stopped by. We took the time to connect. The girls were also part of the discussion. I think the kids were relearning also that social element, this moment, this time to connect. And we were just, I think we're relearning on how to enjoy the now, instead of always being somewhere else. We're just reconnecting with the people who are in front of us and enjoying those conversations, which is super precious. I think that's something we've forgotten, and especially as a family, those are the moments that the kids will remember later on. The conversation you had with your daughter, Dave, asking about where to start, like those might be like striking moments. How do we create more of those moments that can be memorable as a family, and that the kids can refer back when they're adults? I think that's critical for us to ask ourselves as parents.
Ooh, love it. And man, I don't normally interject and add this much to the conversation. I tend to just like pass the mic over more, but as a parent myself, you're just like eliciting so much in me. You're making me think of this move from Toronto to Prince Edward Island, right? Like I live in a much smaller community now. And what I've noticed actually, especially as a knowledge worker with a lot of flexibility, is that it's given my wife and I an incredible opportunity to immerse ourselves in our community and actually spend a ton of time with people that are frontline workers, whether they work in retail, Or by example, in relation to your comment, Elodie, someone painted our house and spent literally like 3 months in our house because we've got like 6 layers of wallpaper in this home that was built in the early 80s. And this woman, Lynn, has become like a member of our family. My daughter thinks of her as a grandparent. Across the street from me, we have 2 neighbors, one who's a labor delivery nurse. We've been able to do things like watch her kid in the morning for the bus if they can't be there. They've invited us now to become an extended member of their family for things like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And like, it's going to make me cry because like I've got some family sort of estrangement. And coming out here, I was really worried that like, not only would my daughter Elle not have someone at home that she might feel super comfortable with, but that we may never find it here. But it's the exact inverse because of a similarly different scenario that you just described, Elodie. So I absolutely love it. And I'm sorry for stealing the mic this way, but I just wanted to say that.
I love this. I think when you put yourself out there and try and give to people, then suddenly you get a lot back in return. And that's what we need to keep on teaching our kids. We've had a lot of values also, back to Rowena's point, as a family. We're both from different countries. My partner is Swedish, I'm French. So we wanted to raise our kids, like a very multicultural family, very open-minded. We had some very set values. And I think when we started traveling even more, we realized that a lot of this is in the making. And actually, through the travel, we're constantly redefining what is the most important for us. We're constantly testing and learning and making mistakes. I think back to Rowena's point, kindness, self-kindness is really important. But having that intent to just be in the moment, connect with the ones around you will always get you where you're supposed to be eventually. And you have no clue what that's going to be. Just go out there and try and explore. That's the best way to figure it out.
Love it. Love it. So Rowena, before I come back to you for a sec, we've got like 11 minutes before we give enough audience participation time. So unless you have something absolutely mic drop worthy like you tend to have, I would love to move on to the next question, but I'll wait in case you do.
No, just move on. Move on, Dave.
Okay, great. So, you guys are both living what I would call currently unconventional family existences. They're extremely exciting and very inspiring, but they're not common. And I guess the skeptic in me wonders how and when they may become more common. So my question is more, if we pull out the crystal ball and we kind of look to that 2030 date, which seems to be material in so many aspects of our lives, notably in the climate arena. What is it going to look like at that point in time? What's exciting? What needs work? And my most important kind of like sub question to this is like, what is the role of the organization in helping get to a much better version of where we are today? So I'll start with Rowena.
So, great question. I've written it down so I don't forget it here beside me. But what I would want to add is that we're not, as a family, totally unconventional. So I've actually come from Bansko Nomad Fest in recent weeks, 900 digital nomads running around a small town in the mountains of Bulgaria. So I made sure to put the average age up there, as it should. But what was interesting about being there is there was a lot of talks on world schooling and these unconventional lifestyle that you're hinting to, Dave. And I want to make really clear, we have a base. I know Elodie doesn't. We have a base. We've chosen Spain. Anyone who knows our family story is it wasn't completely out of choice, because during our daughter's asthma, she was chronically ill with asthma in Dublin, and therefore we moved countries for her health. So our story is very much about global mobility from a health and family quality of life perspective, and that's why I advocate so much for remote work as a way of really changing a family's life. But also we've chosen a base for various reasons. Because of her ongoing health, she's much better, but she still occasionally has some challenges. Because of my menopausal symptoms, I've had quite an experience with menopause as a almost 51 on Saturday year old woman. So for that reason, we haven't gone fully nomadic, even though I have been before. So What I want to share there is that it is unconventional, but it's like anything to do with these modern ways of living. It's not all or nothing. You can have a base as a nomadic family. You can have, you can go into a school system maybe some of the time, because Spain only has 7.5 months of school per year. So you can travel 4 to 5 months for the rest of the year, and you can move around if you're a remote working family. And therefore, I want people also to realize that there's mixes of this lifestyle. And that's something that I ended up having a lot of conversations with, because with digital nomadism and even with remote work or work from anywhere, people see it often as an all or nothing, because the media have done such a bad job of painting out these pictures of nomads on beaches, these pictures of people leaving behind everything for years. It can be a toe in the water, it can be a part-time thing. Then on to what can companies do? They need to understand that that's what's happening. They need to have more of a conversation with their employees, and that is something that is so fundamental. In my 24 years in tech, it hasn't changed. What they need to do is listen to their employees and understand what flexibility means to them. So thank you for the clap. It's so simple, but it hasn't changed. Because my interpretation of flexibility with a chronically ill child is totally different from a 22-year-old who wants to go nomading, right? Totally different. Their interpretation of flexibility or their future of work at your company is going to be totally different. So I'm answering your question with a plea to employers and organizations. Actually really engage in a conversation with how we mold the flexible future of work together. And it is those companies who will lead the way, because it's a dialogue. The model has changed. We no longer, the traditional dictatorship of employers is not going to work. Chris, I know you're an employer. I saw it in the chat. I can already tell that you want to have a conversation with your employees, that you're open-minded by looking at your exchange in the chat. And this is what we need from more employers and organizations. So I'm going to answer it with a call to action back, because that's not happening. It needs to be about a two-way dialogue, and it's not easy because it always will be changing and evolving to suit your employees, to suit your team's needs.
Okay, she dropped it. She dropped the mic. Elodie, this is like a mic drop, the whole thing. My daughter dropped it. Marina's dropping it. Elodie's dropping it. So, anything else you want to say, Elodie? I mean, in relation to the question, or anything you want to close with? I'll just leave it open to you.
No, I think Rowena said it really, really well. In terms of the role of the organization, there is still a massive progress that needs to be made in general. I think employees are talking one language, and then the corporation are talking another. We see in a lot of surveys that employees are asking for more flexibility, that the productivity is increasing, and then management and corporations are going against that wave. And I think we're missing out on a major piece. Like, there needs to be this dialogue that happens. People need more flexibility to work, and we need to be more progressive. Employees are asking for it, and we know that it's working. So I think treating your employees as well as you treat your customers is often a big opportunity for most of the corporation, and that's what needs to change. I think we're still like running in our wheel and running after many small projects, but this one, making sure that the organization is at its top in terms of performance, is often overseen and needs to be prioritized.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Well, thank you guys both very, very much. This rivals what I thought was our best session before, which was actually about the future interplay of the metaverse in the city. And we read a poem about the meaning of life to start it off. This is like neck and neck with that session. I loved it. So thank you guys very much. I am going to turn it over to Chris now.
Dave, I wish I had the grasshopper quote now, because just reflecting on that last one would be awesome. Yes, amazing job. In this discussion is just so important. When Dave and I started this idea, we were talking about the future of work, and then we realized that it was really more about the future of life. And now we're realizing it's really about wellness, like doing it well, right? So there's a huge difference. And I always use the term, find your tailwind. There's so much out there in the world that tells you what not to do, or the resistance that is because of whatever construct. So having conversations like this in strange places like this, really allow us the opportunity to feel vulnerable and to ask questions and to create maybe a different dialogue, and to maybe question whether or not everything is right or everything is wrong. So I just appreciate everybody being here. And this, we've got about 18 minutes or so left to open it up to conversation. There's some great comments and some great questions in here. So whoever wants to take the lead in starting our own part of this conversation, maybe Brent, you made a couple of quick comments, or Stephen, would love for you guys to open up the mic and start some discussion.
I think Brent's here. He's on mute. I'm not sure, Brent, if you're here. Stephen?
I am.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I do appreciate sort of the evolution, as you guys have commented, from, it's not just work, it's life. So you've got family, you've got personal, and you've got your work commitment, I guess, as well. And it's been so interesting to see that evolution that sort of occurred. The pandemic sped it up, but I remember, a generation before, my father, and he talked about arriving for work, and there was a sign-in sheet, right? Everybody had to be there before the hour. They signed in, and then the pencil was taken away, at the hour, and you had to go describe to someone why you were late for work. And I just think now, and we've talked a bit, David, before with regards to, it's your contribution and how you contribute to work. And for the last couple of decades, with the element of the laptop, you've been able to work from any office, any location, and now how do you contribute? Location isn't the defining factor, it's what you produce. And I think that's really interesting. And I really like the comments with regards to how you're present. You're present for work, you're present for your family, you're present for yourself. So that's really good.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in there because I think there's a really interesting distinction. I ran a successful project during COVID for an insurance company based out of Ireland and the UK, and we did over 3,500 calls to support people who were landed with work from home. It was like a mentoring support service, and we did over 3,500 calls, myself and my team, and we had so many people who were working from home. So and I've just popped into the chat there, just because you can work from anywhere doesn't mean you should. And it's one of the reasons, again, that I'm very much an advocate of not using the term work from home all the time. I know some people like to work from home. I am actually working from someone else's home at the moment in Tuscany, in one of the other apartments with Boundless Life, which is really, really cool because it's away nearer to where we're living at the moment. But when we were doing all those calls, we actually were using checklists. And to your point about the sign-in form that your father used to sign, people were using checklists to sign into their home offices because they were overworking so many hours. And the only way that they could track the amount of time they were going back in to reconnect was through this little bit of a sign-in sheet, which brings it into a physical activity. And therefore they could track how many hours they were working. All the research shows that overworking, and the research is mainly in work from home, is a huge issue, that many remote workers that work from home work too many hours, they're overconnected, they experience overwhelm, they experience anxiety. And what we were doing as a team was to help people disconnect from that. They were signing into their workspace at home. They were actually keeping a small log so that they could try and put in those boundaries. So we can learn from the past as well. So we brought in that, and it worked really well with some of our clients. And we can really, really learn from the past and look at that whole piece of if we're over-connected, if we're working too many hours, because to your point, are we really present, or are we just sat at the machines? Are we actually doing a sort of technical presenteeism, which is the counterbalance to what we're all hopefully advocating against, the commute and going to a physical office? So that's something that occurred to me that I think is an interest to share with everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got a question for the group if no one else wants to jump in, but I will defer if anyone else wants to speak up.
Just a quick riff, David, if I can, to Rowena's point is the compress and decompress from work can be very positive. So whether it's a walking commute or a driving commute or whatever, it is important to recognize that shift, and there's a benefit to that. So carrying that forward isn't a bad thing.
It's okay.
Totally, and watch out for the post on technical presenteeism. because sometimes when at the end of the day, when my mouth is just going on autopilot, I do produce some good stuff, eh? I just came up with that. So thank you for the prompt. But it is a bit of that, because that's what we're fighting against, and all the researchers are saying they're fighting against presenteeism. And actually, mostly, and again, people who know my content will know, I mostly use co-working. When I go to events, I often check as well that I'm not going to be working from the same pace I'm living in, because I really don't like it. I find I get a digital and technical overwhelm. So that's just my perspective.
Yeah, and Dave, hey, you know me, I always got to say something. It's just
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, having heard a lot of the talk about having a conversation with your employees, it did strike me that we have to be especially present when we consider that conversational aspect, because I think a lot of us are we're remote workers, even if we're co-working sites or digital nomads, whatever we want to call them. We may be present, but we might also be losing our connection. And I think that as we become, more remote or hybrid, we're going to have to actually do a lot more work to make sure we keep that connection, and that it's not just, email sent back and forth or quick chats or, meetings over Zoom where you're not, you're present, but you're not really connected to anyone. And that's also, as a lead in, why I really like some of this space as well, because it feels like there's more of a connection here.
Yeah, I want to plug you, Stephen, for a second. You guys got to start following the articles that Stephen is putting out about the metaverse. He's dispelling myths, and he is showcasing in more depth the opportunity that exists for people to collaborate in more meaningful ways in this modality. So I just encourage you, because he deserves the support, and the insights are ones that not a lot of people possess.
Well,
Very
shucks, now I'm
much.
gonna have to blush.
Very much. And while we're plugging, we need to plug Dot too for a second, because her podcasting and the opportunity to spread that word, the verbal word. We can go over this at the end. I don't want to take any session time, but up in the gears there, we've got a podcast studio that Sarah and I were riffing on quite a while ago, and Dot and Sarah are running with. Having a podcast in the metaverse is cooler than just having a podcast, by the way. So I'll throw that out there as well.
I wanted to say to you that I was already demo of this advantages, what I've shared there in the chat, in the way coaching and mentoring in remote first teams would work, and those leadership skills. You were saying about how we are really present as leaders to have that conversation with our team members, our employees. Actually, a form of advanced coaching and leadership and facilitation skills. Don't underestimate it at the highest level. But I can see how the metaverse can support some of those emotional sharings, that of the psychological safety Dave established early in our green room. I'm happy to have an exchange with you, have a look at those articles and see if we can come up with a maybe collaborative article on that, because that's really piqued my interest.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. That is exactly what we hope to have happen in these sessions.
Exactly what we want to do, Rowena. Exactly. We will welcome that and encourage that and facilitate that.
By the way, Sarah emotes better than everybody. It's really annoying. I'm trying to catch up, but my daughter's already better than me, and I just feel way behind.
Avatar,
Hey, just wait.
Avatar
we got
envy.
some buttons coming. It'll be all good. But yeah, great.
Can I ask Henry? Do you have anything to add, my man? I mean, you're a really active father yourself. Is there anything that's striking a chord with you?
So I'm gonna have to tell you the truth. I've been sitting in 3 different meetings, all in tandem, listening to this one as well. So,
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Facts.
so yeah, I missed a lot of the commentary. I'm catching up on everyone's discussions in the chat room. So, yeah, do you want to shoot me an actual straight question? I can definitely try my best to answer that one.
Well, yeah, sir. Why don't and by the way, I don't want to put you on the spot if you've got stuff going on. So if like, please, before I keep going, are you in a position where you can dig into a question, or would you rather not?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I'm really fascinated by what Malcolm Gladwell said last year, and what I've noticed some others that are in the area of like kind of leadership coaching have said since, which is he sort of defined the situation as our need for autonomy being at odds with our desire to connect. And my personal take on it is that our need for autonomy allows us to decide where and with whom we belong. That's how I see it. But I'm really curious, Henry, if you've got a take on that, because to me, it feels a little bit of like a weaponized statement. And I know I'm like leading it, and I probably shouldn't have done that because I want an authentic answer from you. But what do you think about all that?
Whew, that's deep. Yeah, right.
No pressure.
I have to lean and actually agree with everything that you're saying in terms of we do have the ability to be a little more selective with who it is that we associate or connect with right now. I think as humans, we've been doing that for a long time regardless, whether we've been in school and in uni times, we find our circle, we find our niche, and we associate with those beings that we find that interconnection with. And I think that's exactly what we're doing right now, even on social media hubs like LinkedIn, right? Like, I have been in so many different circles where I've seen so many different minds discuss and interconnect, and I just haven't found so many people to be inspiring, right? But it is this opportunity and time to where I'm able to vet these people and decide who do I want to be my inner circle. And Dave, you know, I've been following this. I think you're a perfect example. Like, I've been following you, listening to you, or we've been following each other, I think, for 2 years on LinkedIn. Yet we've never had an actual discussion. And I never knew who you really were until about, what, 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah,
and
3 or 4 weeks ago tops, yeah.
Yeah, and found out, like, holy shit, we are kind of cut from the same bread. Or, you know what I mean? It's just like, we are almost the same people in different aspects as it relates to who we are as parents, as who it relates to music. So I think right now we are an opportunity. We're in a state where we can be selective on who we choose to be close to and build relationships with. You know what I mean? And I don't find it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it, man. You know, you're making me think of like when I was walking to Greenwich Beach like 2 weeks ago in torrential downpour. I had 2 conversations on that walk, one with you, one with Chris, and that is to me an example of deciding where and with whom we connect. My best where in that moment was going to be at or near the beach because I fucking love it. And yeah. I can't access the type of brains that I want to connect with in certain aspects of my life in any local capacity. It doesn't matter whether I'm in Toronto or Prince Edward Island. I need to turn to the internet to be able to meet Rowena, to be able to meet Henry, to be able to meet all of you. And that's another version of me getting to decide how I belong. And so I don't necessarily look at it as physical as some of these folks are sort of, in my mind, weaponizing it with, because the guys beneath it is go back to the office. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll be completely honest. You know, I've only been a remote worker for what, 7 years now. And I think I was telling you this too as well, Dave, is that I've worked in many settings to where I had to go to a location to actually do physical work, right? But no one in these particular settings ever cultivated my inspiration. No one inspired me. I can probably give you maybe 2 or 3 names, and I think I wrote a post about this too, that actually today I can say, wow, you were inspiring. You were someone I was happy to sit by and have conversations with, so on and so forth. And we look at kind of what leaders are all saying, oh, we need to go back to the office so that we can have these innovative moments to collaborate, to build culture and bullshit. And I think about it, I'm like, no one inspired me in the office. Is that because, you know, I wasn't jumping around table to table and having these conversations? Well, that wasn't an option then. I know that's kind of an option now, and they're trying to push it. It's like, oh, well, cross collaborate between different departments and divisions, la. But everyone who's in my department, no one inspired me, right? And if I did have the opportunity to go to the water cooler area, I wasn't the type to like, oh, hey, you know, Kirk, like, how's it going? Who are you with? Who are you working with? That's just not me. I'm a little more introverted, slightly extroverted at the same time, but I don't go randomly in water cooler areas to spitball shit. That's not who I am. I know a lot of extroverts say, oh, I need to go back to the office in order to do that. And how many people really do that? I meant maybe 1 out of 30 who like to do that, but I don't think most of us do. But that's just me. But anyways, digress. Social media, LinkedIn, just following people who have valuable things to say is where I have found my circle. And therefore, yes, does it take a little bit for me to outreach, say, hey, I enjoy what you post. Let's like have a dialogue and connect. I know it might be hard for some people, but I think people are more susceptible to opening up that type of relationship and accepting those type of messages versus not. It's not as weird, right? As it would probably be in a water cooler area. Like, it's more acceptable to send you a message. Hey, I totally agree with what you're saying. Let's connect outside of this. Let's have a virtual coffee chat. It's totally more welcomed. So, yeah.
Yep, that's, you know,
Henry-
I do want to chime in one thing just because I think might be a common thread. You know, Henry, I've talked to you on hikes standing next to a cactus in the desert. Dave, I've seen the frozen Atlantic Ocean firsthand with you. I met both of you in LinkedIn, but I've met both of you. And then, you know, Henry, you and I have had a chance to break bread in LA. So it's funny how much more meaningful your network can be if you're honest and truthful and vulnerable, and then you meet. It's a very interesting concept.
Well, you
So,
become a global citizen too, right? You become a global citizen.
You do. So,
I just
thanks
have to
for that.
say, as a big time introvert in person that has become an absolute goofball of an extrovert in a virtual world, Henry, I really identify with what you said. And what's so interesting is that in this place, in this format, I really enjoy the social contact and all of that because I can control it in different ways, and it just gives me a comfort that I never really had in person. And so even the small talk stuff, I used to absolutely dread small talk, but we have such great, interesting, you know, small talk conversations with like Stephen and Michael and everybody up front. So it's just a different place, and I think you hear from different voices than you would in other places, and we've discussed that in some of these too. But that's kind of cool, I think, and it's similar to LinkedIn, right? It's a similar extension. I think they're analogous in a lot of ways, and obviously overlap. So well said.
Awesome. Well, guys, we are dead on 1:30. We can keep this conversation going. We definitely need to take a picture. There are definitely more things to talk about in the chat. I want to encourage each of you. There's a couple of new goals that we have that we're trying to put together as a team. So any guest that we have, we want you to come back, right? This is not just about a guest lecture series speaker thing. This is about community. That's why we built Orion Growth as a co-working space. So wherever you're working from, come back, come join us, come sit, come work here for a day. And then go explore, you know, get out of this office, just like you have to get out of the place that you're in right now. Go to the virtual version of outside and go check out what's been built in OC and look at what the Octosmos team has done on behalf of, you know, all the different creativity and creative people that are out there. And go see Steven's woodworking exhibit and go look at the AI exhibit. So with that, it is 1:30. Should we take a picture, guys, and then continue the conversation?
Yes, let's do that. Rowena and Elodie, thank you so much again. Really
Thank you
appreciate
guys
your
so
insight.
much.
Oh yeah, this
That's
is
awesome.
Round of applause. I think everyone can clap or F4 or click on your name and
Here,
clap. But that was
dance.
really great. Dance. Cheers.
Can you put the table back in for a minute? Because I just want to do something that I've always wanted to do.
Oh, I know what she's gonna do.
Oh, I do too. Yeah, sure. Let's go. Here, everybody
We
sit.
know what's coming.
Everybody sit. Sorry.
As a recently appointed member of boards, executive level boards, I just, guys, if we could get that as a meme for me of 24 years in tech, I literally will spread it all over LinkedIn 100 times a day.
Oh my God.
because ever since I learned how to do the climb thing earlier, I was like, that's how we get women in the boardroom. Put the ladders at the side of the table.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. So good.
I love it. I love it. All
So
right,
good.
guys, well, let's get a pick, huh?
Line
What
up.
do you think?
Here we come by the bench.
Yeah, we'll come on over here.
But this is the awkward part of everybody finding a way to actually have their selves shown and not stand in front or whatever with people. I don't know, Rena, I don't know if you know Tracy Hawkins, but me and her like inadvertently were holding hands in one picture, and then there was another one where I was inadvertently grabbing her behind.
Oh my gosh.
We opted for the holding hands one. We said we can go with that one. Let's stick with that one.
How do I turn myself around? Oh yeah, okay, hang on.
You do the
There you
hokey
go.
pokey.
Is that okay? I can't see
Yeah.
myself now. There we go.
And so everyone knows different emotes and stuff, and so we'll do a 3, 2, 1, and you can wave or clap or flip or whatever you like. So I'll take a few shots here. 3, 2, 1, emote. All right, we'll do one more. Actually, y'all just emote away. I'm just gonna take some photos, just whatever you can do, whatever you'd like to. We'll get a nice mix. Everyone's looking really colorful, and that was an amazing conversation.
I'm only 5 foot, so this climb thing has got me totally overexcited.
Great, I got it.
All right. This was great.